Welcome to Myagic Cube. This is your host, Anthony Adams, aka Uberbear, also joined by our other host.
Sorry.
Yeah, hang on.
I screwed that up.
This is not your
Let's
show.
do it.
Can we start this intro again? Welcome to
Myagic Cube. I'm your host, Myagic, and I'm here joined again by my co-hosts, Stu and Anthony. Sorry.
Well, here we are. It's part 2.
It is. Of a interesting conversation that was presented by our good friend, Alex Newsbaum. And it was, the question is, what if I copy someone else's cube or clone it, how do I make it different?
We have a quote.
Yes.
Can I do the quote?
It's 100% yes.
Immature poets imitate. Mature poets steal. Bad poets deface what they take. And good poets make it into something better, or at least something different. T.S. Eliot, The Sacred Wood.
Yeah, it's so beautiful.
Beautiful.
Yay.
Thank you.
Wonderful
Thank you.
Before we get too deep in this topic, we're going to do the thing that we always do here at Myagic Cube, and we're going to enjoy our beverage of the show.
What you got?
I am having a Southern Tier 2 times IPA. It is delicious. How about yourself, Myagic?
I am having a White Russian.
Nice.
I'm
nice.
jealous.
I'm a little jealous.
So I got another one of these Guinness that I seem to have every
You
time.
guys are so
I should have like a free case a week or something by now. I don't know if I can make it.
Yeah, so if Mr. Guinness is listening and
Yes.
he's in Shannon,
Hello, Mr.
Ireland right
Guinness.
now, and we're looking for a good spot.
All right, let's crack one.
Let's crack it up. Let's go. All right. So, as we said, just to refresh the topic, I'm gonna kick it off, and then we're gonna do some conversation. So, what we talked about in our previous episode was to answer the question: as if I copy and or clone someone else's cube, what's some techniques that I can do to differentiate me in the cube environment or the world? Right. So, we talked about use the cube map. Lucky Paper Radio, our good friends, have given us just a beautiful map where
tool.
you can see where you land on that map, right? And we'll leave that in the show notes. And then you can use Scryfall, which we're going to talk about here in a few minutes. You can just ask the community, and we're going to talk about that more extensively. Play testing, player feedback. Questions that you ask, do you want to flatten or heighten the power or sidestep from the clone that you made, or maybe cut it off and increase the value or decrease the value? All of those will cause you just to have a graduated or a standard deviation that will occur over time so that your cube becomes different than the curator that you cloned. But that's just as an overview of what we talked about before. From this point on, I'm going to ask Myagic to please take it on and see what you got.
Sure. So I think one of the main things that we didn't get to talk about last episode was Scryfall just as a resource. And it is something that we all kind of know exists. It's a resource that a lot of people are familiar with, but maybe haven't gotten really adapted to how to really utilize it as an engine. I'm not here to tell you or give you some kind of a tutorial on how to search. I don't think that any of us want to do that. I'm not going to dump a bunch of information on you on how to do that. Instead, I want to take the approach of, hey, here are ways that you can search or things that you should search, and try to piggyback off of that as you learn and develop your skills on Scryfall, rather than just, all right, here's all the information, here's all the tags, good luck, remember it all.
Yeah, I will say that it's incredible to me how much on Magic social media, how many people had never heard of even just the advanced search, let alone obviously with the syntax and all the custom tags and all that kind of stuff that you can do. It's incredibly powerful, but it really is. But even just the advanced search, which is extremely intuitive, very straightforward to use, very, very powerful.
And we have to be thankful for the creators of this. This is actually what Cube Cobra and others are tethered directly to this database. This database is gorgeous. So if you haven't checked out Scryfall, stop what you're doing. It's really great. Not the James Bond film, also great. But give it a whirl. It is really Adele. It was Adele, right? It was Adele?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
It's an absolute cornerstone to the Magic the Gathering community, just as a whole. And it is a tool that, even if you don't immediately understand how to work the syntax or how to work the site, that's fine. Just play around with it. Use the advanced search for a bit. And what I like about it is that your learning process with it is kind of intuitive. The more that you use the advanced search, the more that you're going to learn the syntax.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I mean, the most complex thing I've done is maybe I don't know, less than equal then. I mean, this tool is so intuitive that I don't have to try too hard. And I'm only using that for the dollar amounts when we did our dumpster fire cube, that I could actually then enter in the values and then filter by the dollar value, the rarity level.
I will admit,
it's very intuitive.
I will admit, the first time I really got into it was actually not with a cube. It was I was building a commander deck at the time. And it was when we had a stip build in our group and we were doing the any general, but the rest of the 99 must be $1 or less.
Yeah.
But I had a very specific sort of theme that I was going, very specific strategy that I was working on. And it was creatures within the color scheme, but I also wanted creatures that got their power and toughness based on the number of creatures. And I was also looking to draw cards and bounce and all that kind of stuff. And I will say that as someone who has in the past, much to my dismay, used Gatherer for that purpose of searching for cards, which is like sticking needles into your face, trying to get information in a timely and speedily manner. It's just night and day from using Scryfall. It's so much easier, and you can be so much more specific with the criteria and with the matches and everything that you're looking for. So yeah, I agree. Cornerstone cannot be underestimated how powerful it is when you're looking for cards.
And as we talked about in our previous episode, if you were a curator that has now made a clone and you wanted to sidestep, right? You're being intentional. I like this format. I like this foundation that this other curator's done. I think it's great. Let's just say the fake cube, right? But I want to have some deviation. I don't want to feel like I have the same cube as May. I want to then look, and she's got, goblins. So then I can query by goblins and find other intentional goblin options that maybe I can experiment outside of the fake cube. Or I've got some kind of Vidalcan that I've used in an artifact environment, or some kind of Vashino in a pauper environment, but I don't want to copy, say, Chris Moore's pauper cube, right? I want to find a sidestep, or I want to inject, I want to cut X amount of cards, an entire archetype. Like, let's say I want to make my Demir section a little different than, we'll keep reference our good friend Sandwich's pauper cube. And I want to add horsemanship, except I'm going to put, as I did in my version, I cloned his to make it for my little brother using all the tools and things we talked about before. But my thing, I wanted to give it a little different. I knew my brother liked ninjas. So then I used Scryfall, and I could use it's got options under color section. I can put in type, I can put in creature, ninja. I can go down to colors, and I wanted blue and black, or have Demir, and then search by ninja. And then it gave me all the ones. And then I decided I could also query it by the rarity level, which in this case, pauper was common.
Yeah.
I mean, this is how easy it was for me. And then it would just literally, then I go to the visual of it, and I've got all copies of it. And I can say, see all printings, and now I have the availability to choose, which one my little brother would like for Christmas, right? And make an entire package that broke away from Sandwich's pauper cube. It's really cool. I've used this tool so many times to sidestep from another curator's idea.
And I like that from you're replacing sort of the whole package. Now, the fake cube, Myagic, your fake cube, with its gazillion freaking clones and iterations of it that are out there. Tell us a little bit about how you use Scryfall, because I think I want to sort of stay on this topic, how you're using it to not just be able to sort of expand it and maybe even replace a whole archetype, but also to make these smaller, more iterative changes to the themes within the cube.
Sure. So when it comes to my fake cube, is that I have a very specific vision in mind, that I have a set amount of archetypes that people have built and continue to keep building, and a lot of the data keeps affirming the things that keep getting built. So my goal is not to take away from things that people want to play, but rather be additive. And part of that is, again, using those advanced functionality to be like, okay, I'm wanting to bump up goblins a bit because they haven't been as successful as I want them to be, and people want them to be a little bit more predominant. So let's say I took out one of my 2-drop goblins, then I would go into the advanced search. I would look up the 2-drops, look up red, put in goblin, as you said before, and it'll give me a comprehensive list of goblins. But you can also expand that to, my cube has a budget restriction because I want people to be able to clone and have paper versions of my cube. And because I have a very strict budget restriction when it comes to the goal for the cube, I can just go down, select the USD amount or your currency's amount, and then put in like your budget amount if you're wanting that. And it'll just give you a comprehensive list of whatever 2-drop goblins I put in. And that is one approach to doing it. But the other approach that people don't really know about is rather than a specific swap of, I'm trying to 1-for-1 this goblin for another goblin, sometimes I just need to replace a certain role. So, say for example, I want to swap out my mana dorks in green. So instead of just typing in green, 1-drop, maybe put in the text, tap, add 1 mana, or whatever, instead I can use what's called Oracle Tag. And Scryfall has a really cool project that a lot of people don't know about called the Tagger Project. And you can access this by going into Scryfall, going into Syntax Guide, and then clicking Tagger Tags. And there'll be a little link right there called Tagger Project, and I'll make sure to send you the link to the Tagger Project for the show notes.
It's so cool because me being a controls programmer, I've been working on a haystack project forever where I'm doing backnet protocol for the past 20 years where I'm writing haystacks so that people can find syntax within their automation systems and then pull them in for a database. And that it's so cool to me to see that this website's kind of pulling in that same concept. Making things queryable is the way to go.
Advanced queries.
So I'm going to give you like the biggest tip that will require no memorization of syntax ever. Just remember OTag, : or just take the link to the Tagger Project. Use the find function of your browser and type in what you're looking for.
It's awesome.
Oh, I'm looking for dual lands. Type in dual lands, and then you'll find the next available links for dual lands under the Tagger Project, and you just click the link, and you can find all the dual lands of
It's
whatever
very cool.
you're looking
That's
for.
cool.
I'm looking for mana dorks, so I type in mana dork or rock, and then it'll just come up however many tags exist for rocks or mana dorks or whatever, and you can just piggyback off of those tags. No memorization required.
Yeah, for the visual learners out there, I will put maximum effort into this, and I will do, as I've done in other shows, I will do kind of some step-by-step rudimentaries, some highlights, and I'll cut out and do some, some PNGs and attach them to our end of our PDF that we put out. A lot of acronyms there. But when I post it to our Google Docs, or GDoc. Let's go. All right, so I'll make it for the visual learners as well, too, because I understand that sometimes the audio portion can be intangible. So I will try to bridge that as much as possible just to make this more clear. But this tool is powerful, man. I'm looking at it right now, just the top level. And I will pause for a minute, and I will give a shout out to Lucky Paper Radio because they have done this. I mean, they've been there, done this, and they did an excellent job with it. I just thought this was a great episode to talk about a little bit more, right?
Yeah.
Is the card name, the text, the type line, the colors, commander, mana cost, stats, formats, and you've got all these other, you can do a lot of other choices within that and search by creature type. That kind of helps with that side-by-side step that we talked about when you want to go from dragon to dragon, because you want to transition from, May's got a Shivan dragon, and I want to run
Glorybringer.
there. Yeah. See, and that is how you
Go big or go home.
You go home.
But
There you go. You want an
But
idea
I will do a shout out, and I will reference the Lucky Paper Radio, and you should 100% listen to it where they cover it. And I don't know the episode name, but it's a great episode. They talk about using all of the minutia of Scryfall, and they do an amazing job with it. So I can't in the heart of hearts not give a shout out for that one.
No, I agree. And as we're in the sort of vein of reaching out, before we actually started recording today, as we did our little pre-flab and chatting away, we talked about, and actually I think we briefly mentioned this during the intro, is about reaching out, right?
Yeah.
The community's getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and not just players, not just people sitting on their computers playing Vintage Cube, but people engaging in, on Reddit, on Facebook, all the social media outlets that are there that have got dedicated communities for Cube, and all the curators and even all the players that are out there. There's the access to people, right? Not necessarily resources, like a Scryfall, but just the people out there. You got to reach out, take advantage of that, right? There's so much of a community, right? The willingness to help, the willingness and the delight to talk about. Every time we look at Myagic's face. Every time you're on this show, there's just such a joy about talking about the cube and talking about, the fake cube and anything else, right? People just seem to be genuinely passionate. and they'll love to chat with you about their cube or another cube and ideas that they have.
Yeah, that would be a good example. Like in our Discord, Myagic is she's the front man of the band, right? Like when someone puts up a question and I'm on an airplane, I'll land and she's handled it. I don't even have to. I'm like, what she said.
I'm the drummer as well. Can you imagine? I'm the drummer. No one gives a shit about no one cares about the drummer. You just sit at the back and kind of keep time, right? Yeah, you're the singer. You're the cool one. I just sit back and just like stamp my feet and hit a cymbal every couple of seconds, you know. Thanks, guys. I'll take 10%.
Dave Grohl. Shout out to Dave Grohl. Just let you know I'm willing to go out if you want to give me a call. Anyways, so the tools are available, right? And there's so much more, but I think, in my personal opinion, I would agree with what you said. Scryfall's great. If I want to do side-by-side, I want to be closed loop, analytical, I just want to look at my computer, sure. But I get my best feedback from my play group, and for people who are willing to give you honest feedback. Like Stu, we've talked about this on numerous occasions, where using a clone example, and this goes back to that root question, my vintage cube was, it always will be, and had been more the same. But it didn't start branching out and becoming different until I started getting feedback from my friend circle, right? Like, why don't you try this card? For example, we've got the brand new Atraxa that's coming out right now. It's amazing. I'm not going to run it. I'm just not. Not right now. I'm going to hold back. I'm being intentional with that. My good friend Chris Moore Samich, he and I joke. One of us is going to be the guinea pig. This card's currently $50. He got it for like 10. Guess who's not going to get it $50? This guy. I get to play his power cube for 50. I'll come back to my 540 at some point. But if it's an emulation of Grizzlebrand, and I want my cube to have a different, even though we're both powered in different sizes, I want to have a different identity than him. I don't want everybody rooting, like the truffle pig rooting for the same cards everywhere we go, right? I want to have, when you play my experience, it's Anthony's powered cube. When you play Chris's experience, it's Chris's powered cube. Mine just so happens to be, and his as well, completely filled with altar sleeves. And if I haven't mentioned, we're an affiliate of ours. It's really great. They're gorgeous.
It's not just the cards.
It's not just the cards.
Why don't you tell us about the altar sleeves?
Oh, they're beautiful. My soul ring is sick. But I'll be sharing those this weekend on Twitter. I can't wait. They're actually, I don't think people, if you haven't seen them, have you? As a side note, all jokes aside, your fake cube is beautiful. You should look at the website just to look at them. You can pimp out some of those sweet goblins.
It's very nice.
They're pretty sick. But we have digressed.
If I were to get altered sleeves, I want like fairies just on for every sleeve.
I will be shopping for you this weekend.
If I could just get didn't say please for every single card.
Well, tell us a little bit. Now, you talked about player feedback, and we've actually mentioned this on some of our episodes. But man, I want to get some of your experiences with talking to the people that play your cubes and the nature of the feedback that you tend to get, how you react to it, and sort of paths that you may follow when you get that feedback from your players, and sort of how you treat it initially, right? Because this is, again, something that we've talked about, and I like to get that sort of that thought process, right? Of how does a curator take that opinion that they've received from a player and talk me through that process of what you do with that all the way to whether or not you choose to make a decision on to make a change to your cube.
So I actually have a really, what's the word I'm looking for? Precise example of this.
Okay.
Because my play group, early on when it came to introducing my play group to the cube, getting a lot of that early feedback was kind of difficult because they kind of were just barely getting adjusted to the environment. They're just kind of barely getting their bearings and figuring things out. And over time, as they kind of made more suggestions and we can identify certain play patterns or problems or whatever. But as they started to get comfortable, they started mentioning cards that they're actually interested in seeing. Things that they want to see.
Okay.
They're like, hey, here is a card that I would think would be cool in this environment. And one of the things that my group specifically mentioned was all the hybrid, quadruple to quintuple pip of the hybrids for each of the guilds, where it's like a Noblesse of War, Deuce of Calamity, what was the other ones? Point is that it's from the Shadowmoor.
Yes.
Okay.
Shadowmoor area, right? Shadowmoor, Morningtide, etc. And they were just like, hey, I would like to see a lot of this cycle. And of course, I could take that feedback and be like, well, What I currently have is kind of at a different power level, but I can kind of look at each of those and figure out which one belongs, which one doesn't. Like, I've recently identified Lock Dragon as kind of a mediocre card for my cube. I can just look at some of the cards that they suggested and then be like, yeah, this would be a good swap. And then I could just put it on the maybe board and figure it out as I go after I digest it. And the short answer is that when you have a paper copy of a cube, getting your players and your pod adjusted to the current cube so that way you can start making adjustments to it can be a good way to evolve and adapt it over time if you have a good relationship with your pod.
We talked about it in the over tinkering episode, and you mentioned it again. If you were going to clone someone's cube and you wanted to keep that de facto that layout of what they had before, right? Sure. You could use the maybe board as a standby list to graduate your changes into the cube environment. You don't have to go full blitz, right? You don't have to come at them, blitzkrieg and take out and gut the cube. And I want to take a Fey cube, and I'm gonna take this Monopoly board, and I don't want to deal with no dogs, and I don't want to deal with a thimble, and use, I don't know, hairballs, lit balls. You don't have to get that extreme, right? You could literally use the pieces, and then as you see that you want to make it your own identity, you could graduate pieces into the profile. You don't have to just start cutting it to pieces.
Those maybe boards and the concepts are really amazing as well. Yeah, because like we talked about with the artifact cube, right? So it was some feedback that you had received. We said, look, maybe some of those repeatable effects are a little bit powerful. Maybe they should be on the watch list. Eventually they get cut. And so then you've got an opportunity to say, right, if you think I should remove this, card that's maybe a little out of place, here's a challenge for you. Here's my maybe board for my cube. Go and choose a replacement. Go and give me a couple of ideas. Not that I'm like, yes, I'm going to make that choice, but maybe you're almost learning a little bit about the evaluation perspective of that player, saying, right, how much should I put weight into the opinion that you have? Not that you're necessarily trying to call someone out, but I really want to see where that choice is coming from, right? And what's your motive for wanting me to replace this specific card? Is it purely from a power level perspective? Is it because you just got destroyed by one game and now you're having an emotional response, which I'm sure a lot of people do? So
I will actually push back a little bit and say a majority of people who play Cube, their experience isn't coming from the position of a curator. And when it comes to shoving them a link, they're probably not going to click it unless they're just trying to last minute look at what's in the cube.
You can just ask for verbal suggestions, and I think that's fair. We talked about that. It's
really pod dependent, is my point.
Yeah, I agree, 100%. Yeah,
you've probably noticed the audience that I like to do a lot of tags to our previous episode, but cube courtesy. Listen to that one. But one of the things is, if you're going to provide a problem, you should always provide a solution.
Yes,
it's that's just courtesy, right? In general. So if you observe a card that you want removed, you would like to see no longer in my cube environment, or in addition, combining the two episodes is the over tinkering with the cube courtesy. You could maybe board a lot of things, right? Like, it's just, sure, I'll put a pin in it. This is a great idea. I want to keep the identity of this cube as it stands right now, but I do see where you're coming from. I will add these additions over time. You could slow bleed them in. It's a good idea.
It gives you some tracking as well. Like you say, there's so many new sets. There's so many new cards. There's so many new options, right? An influx of them nowadays, more so than there ever has been before. And maybe you add a card, or you have like, maybe that card, yes or no, I'm just going to add it to the maybe board. And then eventually down the line, it becomes something like, hey, there's some either better support, more support. Maybe it replaces a card because this archetype I've been able to change a little bit due to some even newer cards. So I like the idea.
I've had a lot of clones of my La Femme Fatale cube, which is it's just wonderful. It's a cube that celebrates the females in the Magic multiverse. And I will tell you, truthfully, I haven't played it since CubeCon. And I'm about to be battle hardened here in about, an hour, because when I break that sucker out, I've made iterations and changes. So all these things we're talking about, they're going to be looking, they're going, hey, well, I don't know, why are you running this card? And there's a new one that came out in New Phyrexia that I want to continue to push the theme. I don't know the name of the card, but it's the one that's the female that's unblockable. It might see legacy play, keyword legacy. That's why I'm not putting it in there. I think Miguchi actually recommended it, that people should run it.
Was it?
It's the unblockable.
Is it the blue card?
Yeah,
right?
Snapcaster Mage. Not going to put it in there, but this is the traps that I fall in, because we talked about in our last episode was Elish Norm was another trap, and I want to make all these changes. I want to update it. I want this cube to I have followers for that one too, right? Not as many as the Fake Cube because yours is awesome,
Cube.
right? Celebrity Cube. I'm in your shadow here. But as I develop this cube environment, I do have people that are watching it, right? And I do feel that burden of responsibility, and I want to make responsible, transparent.
When people are making versions of your cube.
It does, and he talked about it before. We're doing a podcast now, so now people are listening. So I want to be responsible with my choices. I don't want to get too risky, and so I get that same problem everybody else deals with as a curator. I'm about to go bust this sucker open. I haven't blown the dust off this thing in since October, and they're gonna beat me up in about an hour, aren't you? I'm going to be maybe so. And I'm going to go maybe bored. Here
come the emotional
So
responses.
I'm going to actually loop this back into what we were talking about before of reach out to the community.
Yeah.
Join the Discords. UberCube has a Discord. You can come in and be like, hey, I'm kind of trying to figure out a new green package or some new blue package. I'm trying to get a new counterspell package. Here is my specific things that I'm trying to do. Help me get some ideas here.
Especially when you've cloned someone's cube, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like, how incredible is that? Someone's cloned your cube, and now they're talking to you, in real time. Like, hey, I've cloned your cube.
Exactly.
Amazing. Like, I feel like I would feel incredibly vindicated that someone has taken, any amount of time out of their lives to not just clone the cube, but also want to spend some time doing any kind of refinements, whether, whatever their motivation might be. And now they want to talk to me about, like, how amazing
I love
is that?
seeing the clones of my cube.
Of course.
Well, I had thought about that too.
Is that it lets me upgrade my cube.
Well, that's what I was about to ask.
That's a card I haven't considered.
Exactly. Because I was going to say that too. Because people have cloned my horror cube, and they've cloned my. Being honest, my power cube doesn't get cloned. The other ones do. Because guess what? My power cube is a clone. It's just the way it is. The attack of the clones, right? But the thematic cubes are the unique example. Yes. So people they're interested in those ideas and they want to expand them. But my thing I was wondering, and if I cloned your cube, May, and I didn't know you, and I'm a listener, and I've made a copy of the fake cube, and I reached out to you on Twitter and say, hey, I like your cube or the UberBear Discord, but I want to make some changes. How would you as a curator respond to that? That is interesting. Like, I'm going to deviate from your painting. You as the painter is now got a student, but I want to do something different, May. I was thinking I could change this. How would you handle that?
My response would be, what kind of ideas do you have? Go nuts. Tell me what your ideas are. I'm happy to just go through and be like, oh, these are some ideas that maybe I've considered, maybe I haven't considered, or wow, that would be a really creative option, and I would like to see that in your version of the cube.
Exactly.
And that's very positive.
Exactly.
That's very positive.
Curator.
And then, like you say, it could also be that, oh, you know what? I just removed that card that you said, maybe you should include this card. You're like, I removed that a month ago because it was terrible.
Or Trigon. I told him to run 3 copies of Trigon Predator. And 2 oofs.
And 4 Dave Grolls. It's the magic formula.
It's the magic
3
number.
Oofs, 4 Dave Grolls.
Yes, it is.
2 Trigon Predators.
I want to give some real world examples of how I've used all these tools that we've talked about, all these different ideas, cube map and scryfall, side by side comparison, ask my friends, ask Meg, all the things, right? Just communication. When I first built my, what's now known as the UberBear's horror cube, right? The first iteration was, I didn't know what I wanted. I wanted something very factional. I wanted to represent, I was thinking elves, and I was thinking goblins. And then as I'm driving, this is what I do. I'm driving home from the airport, and I'm like, oh man, I'm going to do zombies, werewolves. I'm going to do this really cool idea. I'm going to make it very Gothic horror. So I went on my own. I went out on my own, and I went through my collection. I built it. And our first iteration of this cube, it was a disaster. I mean, it was literally just bumping uglies. I mean, you would literally attack, you'd block. It felt like it was the doldrums of Magic. There was no exchanges, no depth. It was just werewolf turn sideways, vampire block, it dies, pass. I mean, it was so bad. And then I branched out, and I have to give a shout out. Now, I would love to have this individual on the show, is the Cthulhu Cube. I looked at this design, and this individual has, you have to forgive me, has a 540 cosmic horror, very, quote unquote, H.P. Lovecraftian. And we've talked about the guy's a jerk, but his writing is gorgeous.
Yes.
It's a beautiful cube, and it's deviated from the Innistrad-esque, whereas I am Gothic horror, but it gave me a lot I didn't clone it, but it gave me like some really great ideas, some design ideas to break that, because I was having a hard time where mine was becoming a king of the hill. If you got enough creatures, you went go wide or go high, you could get over the heap. And nobody wants to play that type of interchange of Magic, right? It's just not dynamic. Sure, that's where you start when you start playing Magic, like year one, right? But when you start progressing and you want to learn more and be a better Magic player, you want some tiers, you want some self-mill, you want some flashback, you want all these interesting things. And a lot of that were signposts that were embedded in that particular Innistrad genre. But being honest, I just didn't know what I was doing. You know, I was just a kid at the wheel and learning this cube game. And I hadn't perfected it. So what I did is I, quote unquote, not cloned the Cthulhu Cube, but I used it as inspiration.
Not a terrible starting point.
And then kind of going back to what we talked about before, he's a 540. I then went to a 360. And then I said, well, I want mine to not be, his is more, I guess it's not flat, but it's more set centric. It's more almost entwines more with the Innistrad and kind of the block. Mine was kind of bringing in a lot more stuff from the outside, and as his went more cosmic horror, mine went more Gothic. And then the two cube clones, if you will, in our storytelling here, you could see the two moons separating at that point, right? And we're on the same island, but we're different creatures. If you looked at us side by side now, we don't look the same at all. But it was a good starting block, or Alex Nussbaum's idea that he wanted to know is how to make mine different. I started and then became different over time. Yeah. And through natural progression of, the 4 million sets that we get every year, and then additions and cuts, it naturally begins to occur. It's not an overnight thing. So
ready for the steaming hunk of perspective?
Yeah,
because you had to go through that journey.
Yeah.
You're now a better curator.
Yes.
And ultimately, because of you tried doing this on your own, it didn't work out, you explored other cubes, and then you learned from that.
100%.
And the answer is that you went for it, and you did it, regardless of the fact that you made mistakes along the way, or you didn't quite have your bearings. And I think a lot of people kind of have that decision paralysis of, oh, what if I put this thing in and it's bad? Or what if I make my first cube and it's not very good? And the answer is, do it.
Yeah, once you crack a few cubes out, I'm to the point now where I think I could go home, just get a bunch of cards, confidently play them, and it's not going to be a disaster. But there was and we talked about in our Pauper episode, where I had Circle of Protections and nobody did anything. It was hot garbage. But you do learn. Cloning is a good method to try to get the formula right the first time, opposed to trying to do the bottom-up construction that I did. I wanted to have my own identity, but you can see where maybe some people have solved this equation. Like we talked about our good friend John.
Reinvent the wheel.
Well, we talked about you could actually go to sites like John from Cultic Cube has a lot of videos that'll help it'll help supplement your ideas. Or if you want to learn lines of play, go to ChillMTG and you can watch his videos. You can listen to Lucky Paper Radio if you want to hear some really cool stuff. And then we got Jank Diver.
Us.
We got so many Cuban Chaos.
And us.
Nobody listens to us, but if you're listening,
listen to us. I'm not asking. Show up.
These other people have great ideas too. There's so much diversity, and that's what I love about this community is that it's growing, it's expanding. We all don't agree on our fundamentals, but that's what's so cool about it, right? We can talk about it. I would love to get like this huge forum with all these different podcasters.
There's got to be a way to do that.
It would be. I don't know if it'd be like the House of Commons, everybody shouting, but it'd be amazing. Let's give another
to get together and make.
Let's give another real world.
One cube made by all, right? Every single one. I will represent the players.
Another real world example of how you can make your cube different, and we didn't talk about in our previous episode because it's a little bit more of a deep dive, a little bit more push than we did before, is I built a 2-headed giant cube. So the basis of a 2-headed giant cube was inspired by Battle Bond. I mean, it was a 2-headed giant set, and that was pretty cut and dry, but it was, retail limited, an amazing set. Can't wait for part 2, but it had its limitations, right? Like it would play great, but our play group wanted a little bit more. I wanted to expand to, I believe I'm running 480 cards because I wanted to support, which I've never seen, 8 players, 4 pods. Did I think I got that right? What I did to make that different is reference, as May had said, other people's cubes. I wanted to go on my own. So Battle Bond is the foundation. That's the building blocks, right? But to make it a little better, well, I didn't clone because that was the question, but I did review Tuesday Tastics has a great, and I can share this, has an amazing 2-headed giant cube as well. I mean, there's very few of us, but it has articles, has a full write-up, it's gorgeous. I like some of the pieces that individual had. But then Carmen Handy has a proliferation cube, which also Tuesday Tastic has also adopted some of that as well. I'm going to incorporate that. So now I'm getting this amalgamation of multiple cubes, right? But still not me. So how do I make it me? I put squirrels in it. Now I have squirrel crats. I mean, so the core question was
so true that adding squirrels just makes
it made it me,
so
right?
Anthony.
So when Alex asked, how do I make it me? How do I make it different? I put a thumbprint in there, and I like squirrels. So I guess that's another thing you can add. How could you make a cube different from the curator you copied? Put something in it you love, right? You don't have to fall to the prescription of others. You could literally break off and go, I'm in love with Vidalkins. I'm in love with, what's the guy that throws rock? He's funny. I can't think of his name. The commander, anyways, doesn't matter. You could put any card in there that you're passionately in love with. You want to run Sarah Angel? Then you can run Angels.
Artificers.
You want to just for the lulz, put a Shivan Dragon in there because it gave you joy? Who cares? Yeah. It's your game, right? Have fun.
Do it.
I mean, you don't have the limitations that you think you do. And if your play group is amazing like my play group, and obviously amazing like your play group, they're going to give you feedback, but other than that, they're going to shuffle up, have fun. That's what we're supposed to be doing, right? I mean, that's the end game here. May, do you have anything else you wish to add since this is your show?
Oh, yes, you caught me.
I did. I got you. I got you off guard. I saw you sleeping over there. I was like, what are you doing?
Yeah, as a guest, you're talking too much, all right? Shut up.
I think the only major things that are worth adding there that we haven't covered is when you're looking at things to swap, consider things that you personally don't want or things that you personally do want, and kind of go through what you like and what you dislike about the cube and actually just write it down. Make pros and cons lists, as cheesy as it is. Just take out a notebook and be like, all right, here's the pros, here's the cons, here's where I kind of want to have a little crossroad. And the answer is, do it. Just do it.
I've noticed that theme from you, and I love it. It's just do it.
Yeah.
Stop talking about it. Do it.
Yeah.
Get your cards out. Get Cube Cobra out. Get Scryfall out.
Don't over tinker.
Get designing.
Get designing. She's right. Why are you sitting around talking about it? It's just an attitude, right? It's a perspective.
It's like just, there's only so much talking and thinking you can do about it. Like, sure, you want to, get into the refinement of it, but there's ways that you can just start, right? Even if it's just go and open an account on Cube Cobra if you don't have one already. Start adding name your cube, start adding cards to it.
Sure.
If it's wrong, guess what? You just learned something, and now you can fix it. You now grown as a curator. Congratulations. That's still a good thing.
Yes. Achievement unlocked. All right, so other than that, that's kind of our final thoughts. We're going to kind of stroll over to the socials. I appreciate, once again, I got to say, thank you, May, for joining us again. It's amazing. You did a great job. I want to say that UberCube, we're going to keep changing it. UberCube, maybe Magic Cube. It did great. It was fun. This was a very meta, but also practical conversation that I feel like we should have, right?
Yeah.
And people are always wondering, because there are a lot of cubes. There's a lot of potential out there for you to copy an amazing cube that you fell in love with when you go to CubeCon in 2023, or you show up in California for the Cube Championship, or anything in your LGS, and you see a cube, don't be frightened to copy it, but then make it your own. That's what you do.
Agreed.
And there's a lot of ways you can do it. Feel free to reach out to us in our Discord, etc. And we're going to move over to the socials.
All right. As always, you can reach out to us at Twitter. We are at UberCubeMTGPod. You can reach out to us via email. We'd love to hear from you. UberCubeMTGPodcast at gmail.com. Again, as Anthony mentioned, check us out on our Discord, man. We love to hang out and have chats and discussions and talk about cubing and playing and all that good stuff. And as always, we really appreciate if you wouldn't mind giving us a 5-star review on your chosen podcast platform. Get the word out there, man. Get UberCube out there, get Myagic out there, get Cube out there. And last but not least, tell us, Anthony, how about this wonderful Patreon? What's going on with that?
It's doing amazing.
All right, thank you for that, Anthony. And Myagic, tell us where we can find you.
You can find me on Twitter at Magic1. You can find me at Instagram at magic.tv. Or you can find me at Tumblr at Myagic.
And as we said before, we are an Ultra Sleeves and we're an Ink Gaming affiliate. With Ultra Sleeves, you get 5% off of your purchase. Let me give you the real here. These paintings, these artist rendered sleeves, they're sick. And they have been cut to total precision. They're $6. And you know what? I'm just going to give you the real here. As a curator, when I'm looking at this brand new Atraxa that cost me $60, $120, that's real.
What about Elish Norn?
No, it's a disgusting card.
Okay.
But I would put a sleeve over that would be Gitrog, and she would
Sol
be
Ring?
Gitrog.
I got this Elish Norn, but it's a Sol Ring.
It's Sol Ring. I do have a gorgeous Sol Ring, and it's got fire coming out of it. This weekend, I'll actually be posting on Twitter my Urzas, my Sol Rings. I mean, when I tell you that I've gotten foil renditions of cards, I've chosen not to put them in my Powered Vintage because these Ultra Sleeves are prettier. When they released the, what was the recent Master set that came out with the new Urza and it was foiled out, I could have bought it. No. You should see my sick Ultra Sleeve. It's
Dedication.
way better.
That's awesome.
I got robots marching. It's sick. I hate to go on that rant, but when I say that they're gorgeous, if you use UberCube or not, I'm telling you this website is gorgeous, and the professional artists they support, it's just an amazing thing. And I'm so proud to be a part of that community.
Good.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, that being said, we're going to finish off with what we always say at the end of all of our episodes.
Happy cubing!